Okay.
Hello, Hannah. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. And thank you very much for accepting my interview request. So,
Hmm.
friends, we have Hannah here, and my apologies for mispronunciation by any chance, Hannah. Yeah, yeah. So, Hannah has recovered from severe PTSD after three violent attacks in the UK, France, and then she spent the next 25 years combining a very successful Academy Award winning career in Hollywood with coaching and counseling people with trauma, addictions, and relationship problems. After graduating from the One Thought Institute in 2018, she noticed that her 25 years of chronic pain had completely gone, and so conducted research to discover if she could reproduce this experience in others. Here, this is the beautiful transition where she has experienced herself and then she wanted to share these gifts with others. Following the success of five case studies, she developed a program called Painless, and she has also authored a book with the similar name and is now helping clients worldwide with all kinds of health issues and working with doctors and clinicians to introduce them to the key principles. And also, she is a World Health Organization psychological first responder, an international speaker and author. She has diploma in psychology and is certified life coach with 30 years of experience. Her first book, The Myth of So Low Self-Esteem, a novel about PTSD, Hollywood, and healing, came out last year. And her second, Painless, which is the main theme of today's interview, friends, a novel about chronic pain and mind-body connection. And let's go into her work and many things. And let us hear directly from Hannah. So, please tell me, how did you what motivated to enter into the Hollywood first? Let's start from there and come to the current thing.
Yeah, so I worked in Hollywood for about 20 years. I mean, I started out in the theatre in London,
Mhm.
and I made props and costumes in London. I was always behind the scenes, never wanted to be in front of the camera. Yeah, so it went from theatre to TV to movies. And I was known, I did special effects really in film, and I was known for making copies of real animals as puppets. So I mostly worked for Jim Henson's Creature Shop. Jim was, he made the Kermit and Miss Piggy, the Muppets in New York. And then so I worked in London and then in Los Angeles on movies that weren't Muppet movies, they were other people's movies. So if a story needed a talking animal in it, then we would make, I made dogs and elephants, birds, whatever it was. And so the point was that you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the real animal and my puppet. They would cut from one to the other.
Wow.
And so, yeah, there was a lot of detailed work. Yeah. So it was very exciting. I got to fly all over the world and work with amazing people. It was quite a privilege. Yeah. Mhm.
Wonderful. And how did this coaching happen from Hollywood
Coaching,
to coaching?
right? Yeah, it seems very different. I actually trained as a counselor when I was in college. I did textiles at Manchester University back in the 80s. And I actually trained with Manchester Rape Crisis Centre. And, it kind of alarms me today to think how there were only two crisis centres like that for women in the country at the time, one in London and one in Manchester. And that was only the early 80s, which wasn't that long ago. And so I was trained to answer the hotline, to go and do talks in community centres and go and talk to lawyers and social workers, nurses, and to get the information out there, for people, for women who were, needing help. So I kind of took that training and I kind of continued doing. I was always interested in self-help and transformational stuff. So in between the movies and the theatre projects, we'd often have a lot of downtime, like could be have maybe 2 weeks to 2 months off in between projects. And so I didn't want to just sit around and do nothing. So I would, volunteer and work with different organizations helping. And so when I ended up in California, I worked with a lot of people with trauma, addictions, family, situations, a lot of basically crisis type stuff, and helping people. And I was very grateful for that, because it really kept my feet on the ground. Working with movies and movie stars can be, kind of seductive. And so then I would go and work at, the local Boys and Girls Club, or work with somebody who's going through trauma.
So
And,
nice of you.
yeah, so it kind of, it was almost like I had two careers going on at the same time, like one next to the other. So yeah, it was, that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So please tell me, like, how in 2018 you have experienced something. So please tell me more about it.
Yeah.
How
So
have you been healing?
yeah. So like I said, I'd always been interested in self-help and transformational stuff. And I think one of the reasons I really got into that was because I was mugged 3 times in England, where I grew up. 2 times in Manchester, and then once in London, where I had some severe injuries. I had severe PTSD as well, which I recovered from that. My injuries were, I had a fractured skull, I had 2 vertebrae in my neck were broken, and I had 3 herniated discs.
Oh my God.
So I had, even though I kind of recovered from the PTSD and kind of got on with my life, and the movie career was, a good example of that, I was still plagued with chronic pain. I had terrible back pain. I would often be bent over, bent sideways. I couldn't straighten up. I'd have pain shooting down my legs. I was paralyzed several times, where I was rushed off to the hospital. And thank God it was always temporary. But when it's happening, you don't know that. And as I got older, and it happened, pretty regularly, but every 6 weeks I'd have these episodes where I'd be lying on the floor for several days. I would have all these fearful thoughts, like, what if next time I don't get the feeling back? What if next time this is permanent? So it was very stressful. And I've been going to the chiropractor every month for 25 years to try and keep my body functioning. So when I came across this new understanding of the mind, which we call the 3 principles, and I was so taken by it, because I really, really loved the simplicity and the clarity, the beauty of this understanding. I went to London. Excuse me, I live in Jerusalem. I'm in Israel right now. So I went to London to do some training, which meant I had to keep flying backwards and forwards. I had to, the cost of the class, obviously took some money, flying backwards and forwards to accommodation, and so I had to save some money. And I'd been feeling pretty good. So I canceled my chiropractic appointments. And I thought, if I get into any difficulty, I can always, book another appointment. And at the end of the course, the end of 6 months of flying and studying and traveling, I realized I didn't have any pain.
Wow.
Which was weird, because I'd had pain for 25 years, and I'd always been doing lots of different techniques and modalities, to fix it. The chiropractor, yoga, Pilates, meditation, writing, all kinds of things. And I hadn't done anything. And now I was pain-free. So this was fascinating to me. And so I started reading and researching and talking to people. And that's kind of when I, excuse me, I kind of discovered the mind-body connection and mind-body medicine. And I'm not a doctor, I work in the entertainment business. So it was really, I kind of educated myself over a couple of years. I did my own research, like you mentioned in the intro. And I found out that I could reproduce this in other people. The clients I started working with started getting better. And so that kind of started me on this journey of sharing what I'd learned and helping other people to become pain-free.
Wow. That's like, you have transformed and started helping others as well. That's beautiful. And please tell me about your first book, The Myth of Low Self-Esteem.
Yeah. So a lot of people had said to me I probably should write a book, because of my Hollywood experiences, and then because of the trauma, and then maybe I've moved to several countries. And I think most people probably could write a book. They say everybody has one book inside of them, And so but because I was artistic and creative, I never thought of myself as a writer, as an academic kind of person. So I kind of did it in secret. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. I just would write and write on my computer. And then one day I felt like it was ready. So I sent it to a friend of mine who actually is an editor and does book development. And I said to her, if it's no good, please be nice to me. Like, tell me gently if it's a load of rubbish, And it was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done, was to show my writing to somebody, because I hadn't written anything since I was in like college, which was 30 years ago. I can't spell. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even read. I read like academic books. I don't like reading fiction. So so I'd taken a lot of my own personal stories and turned it into a fiction about a fictitious character called Deborah. She's kind of like my alter ego. She's not me, but I used a lot of my own stories. And my friend read the first few chapters, and she said, "Okay, this is good. It needs work, but it's worth pursuing." So we worked on it and got it together as a book. And I remember I then gave it to a friend of mine who is a 3 principles practitioner, because I had a lot of that information in the book, and I wanted to make sure that I was getting that right. And as soon as I gave her the manuscript, the next morning I woke up with the idea for 4 more books. It was really an amazing experience, because I thought there was just this one book, and I'm not really a writer, but I'll have a go. And then it was like boom, boom, boom. My imagination, once I let go of that story that I'm not a writer, it kind of like a fountain, it kind of like gushed forward with all these other ideas and characters and stories. And so I wrote another book, which is called Painless, that you mentioned. And Painless is kind of it's kind of a sequel. It kind of follows on. You could read them separately. So the first book is about trauma, really, and about my experiences recovering from trauma. And how I kind of went through Hollywood and came to Israel. And so the second book is more fiction, although it's based on a lot of information. And so that in the second book, she really, the Deborah character kind of goes into exploring pain and how that works in the body, and how this new understanding of the mind is a way to get free of that. And so I already have started 2 more books, which when I get a few moments spare, I'm still working on. So hopefully 2 more books will come out in the next year or so. Yeah.
So a person who is, since the theme is more about your book and your online program called Painless, so let's get into what's your observation about the mind-body connection?
Yeah. So when I came across this understanding of the 3 principles, a lot of the teachers would say the statement, "We're always feeling our thinking." And I think when they would say that, they were kind of implying our mood, that our mood is a reflection of our thinking. And for example, if you have low, insecure, grumpy, miserable kind of thinking, you can't really be in a good mood. And the same way as if you have abundant, joyful thinking, you can't really be in a bad mood. So moods are like a reflection of our thinking. We're always feeling the feeling of that thinking. But I think for some of us, we feel our thinking in our bodies. And when I would go to the doctor about my back pain and I'd give them my medical history, they would say, "Well, of course you have pain because you had all these injuries." Or I remember one time going to my chiropractor and I was bent over in so much agony, and she said, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, I was sitting on these little chairs with some kindergartners." She said, "See, that'll do it." And I'm like, so I was always given a physical explanation for my pain. But when I started reading the research, and I discovered something very, very important, which is all injuries heal. And they'll heal within 4 to 6 weeks. So how come I was having pain 25 years later when all those the herniated discs and the fractured bones had already healed? It didn't make any sense. And so that's when I kept getting really interested and excited, and started learning and understanding that there's basically 2 kinds of pain. There's acute pain, which is when you've had a fracture, a burn, a cut, something that's happened immediately, and messages will be sent to the brain to say there's damage, and your brain will produce pain to help you take care of it, like get some ice or go to the hospital, like take your weight off that ankle. But if the injuries have healed, then there's a lot of research to show that pain is actually coming from a different part of the brain. It's coming from the emotional center, which is the limbic system, which is where the amygdala is, which is in charge of the fight or flight response. And so why would the fight or flight response be producing pain? So this is where I got really interested, and I started seeing that when I was experiencing most of my pain, I was also very stressed. Now, I didn't think I was stressed. I kind of dismissed it as, you know, I've just got a very busy mind, and the things I was thinking about were very important. But when you're thinking and thinking and thinking about problems and insecurity, anxiety, those kind of thoughts, they're sending messages to the brain that there's something wrong. And if the message gets the brain there's something wrong, it thinks you're in danger. And if it thinks you're in danger, then it will tighten up your muscles ready for a fight or to run, to get away. And so that's why, like, my shoulders were always really tight, which would then pull the muscles in my back, and then that would get things out of place, and no wonder it hurt, you know, if you're constantly under that kind of stress. And so I also had things like IBS, skin problems, you know, I had TMJ, which is like pain in your jaw, and a lot of people who have a back pain or a neck pain often.
Your video got stuck for a while. One second.
Okay.
Yes. Good.
Yeah. So I started seeing that when I was experiencing lots of pain, it was usually when I was quite stressed. And so when you're up in your head and you're thinking so much, then that's sending danger messages to your brain. So it was actually when I was filming, was often when I was feeling like this, because I was often the only woman on set, you know, like there was the carpenters and the cameramen and the electricians, and there was just me, I was in my early 30s working. And so I was very concerned with not making any mistakes, or, you know, I had to be perfect. I couldn't like let you know I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I was constantly trying to be, you know, do it the right way. And so all of that, what you could call perfectionism, right? Trying to be perfect, trying not to make a mistake, is also sending messages to the brain that there's, you know, danger. Because if I make a mistake, you might not like me, you might fire me, you might, you know? And so no wonder my body was tight all the time. And when you live like that, it starts causing a lot of pain. So I started finding a lot of research to show how this idea that we're feeling our thinking is scientifically true, because and then the body is basically screaming at us to slow down. Only if I don't understand that's the connection, then we go to things like medication and surgeries and, you know, all the different modalities that are out there trying to fix it.
Wow. Amazing. So since you started experiencing a shift in yourself, and then you wanted to reproduce the similar results in others, and you started your work. And could you please, of course, there could be multiple things, but if you could recall some of the exceptional cases that you still remember, could you please share some of your experiences?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had experiences where people's pain has gone like that just in a conversation. I wish I could promise that to everybody, but it's not true.
Yes.
Right? But I have seen it. I remember the very first time I saw it, I was actually in London going to a conference, and I was one of the organizers and speakers. So I was quite busy running around, and this lady, I saw her walking towards me with a walking stick. And she said to me, she said, I forgot to bring my pillow. I have terrible back pain, and there's no way I can sit in these chairs at the conference for 3 days. And I said to her, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. I said, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. I said, but I took a chance, and I told her about what had happened to me, how my pain had all gone away. And I saw her go, like, I could see her having an insight almost in front of me. She was like, and admittedly, we were at a conference for the 3 principles. So she was clearly, you know, already aware of these ideas, but she'd never made the connection with the physical experience. And so then it was busy, and we went off the next day. Now, I won't say she was running towards me, but she wasn't using her walking stick anymore. And she's like, Hannah, my pain is going away. And then on the 3rd day, I went to find her, and she said she was 90% pain-free.
Wow.
And I remember a few months ago, I had a young man who had come here locally. He lived in Tel Aviv and he came to see me, and he was sitting there on my sofa and we're talking. He had terrible shoulder pain. He'd had a surgery in his shoulder, but like what often happens is 6 months later, the pain comes back, and then surgeons are always going to say, well, you have to have another surgery because that's what they do, right? So he'd read my book and he came to meet with me and we're talking, and he suddenly went like that. I said, what happened? He said, I don't know. He said, my arm, look. And he was moving his arm without any pain. He's like, yes, I can go back to my yoga class. It's like, great. Now, that doesn't always happen. For some people, I think for me, I couldn't tell you exactly when my pain went away, but I think it was probably gradual because I wasn't really paying any attention to it. I wasn't trying to work on my pain going away. So I don't know exactly when and how it just kind of melted away from me. And then for other people, and it seems to be people with fibromyalgia and maybe chronic fatigue syndrome, where that seems to take longer. And I don't know why. And I think doctors don't really know why either. And the people I've worked with who have had a much slower recovery have had incredible insights and are doing amazingly well, you know, emotionally and spiritually, but their bodies are just taking longer to heal. But what's happening is because they are feeling better in themselves, any pain that they're still experiencing is not such a big deal anymore.
Okay.
And I think, you know, so because there's also a lot of science to show that if you're in a low mood, you're going to experience pain at much more intensity than if you're in a better mood. And anybody listening can think of, like, if you were to, you know, stub your toe, like bump your toe, you know, you're walking along, you bump your toe on a table or a chair. If you're in a low mood, like say you're homesick, you're gonna be, who put that there? You know, and the pain is gonna be so much more intense. Whereas if you're running to the door to open the door because your friends came with pizza, you probably won't notice it so much, right?
Yes.
You won't even feel that pain. You forget about it really quickly. So a lot of my work is and helping people see that they're experiencing their thinking, that thought is always moving, thought is fluid and changing all the time. And when I can see that to be true, even if we do have pain, you know it's going to pass. Every moment passes, every low mood passes. And so they don't get so stressed by it. And therefore the nervous system isn't overreacting to it. And there's like more and more peace, even though the body is taking time to heal. So, but I've had people with fibromyalgia who have who when I first met them, one lady I'm thinking of, when I first met her, she was in so much pain, she could not sit in a chair for our sessions, you know, meeting on Zoom. She'd have to get up, walk around. She couldn't sit long enough to eat a meal in a restaurant. It was so painful. And after we finished my 10-hour program, shortly after that, she lived in Germany and she took a flight to Jamaica for a vacation.
Wow.
Now that's a 15-hour flight, right? Now she was probably uncomfortable. I think I'd be uncomfortable in a 15-hour flight.
Yes, yes.
Right? But her body was healing.
She
made it, and she was also, her world was getting bigger. She was able to go out and enjoy and go on this, you know, vacation that she'd been dreaming about for years. And now it's probably a year later. She's now running every day. And she mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago that she doesn't have to rest after going running now.
Hey, did I hear that she's running?
She's running. She had such bad fibromyalgia, like I'd say coming up to 2 years ago, that she couldn't sit long enough for a conversation like this. She can now go on a long flight. She's running every day. And she used to have to rest, you know, several times a day, like lie down, take naps. She doesn't even have to nap anymore. She still has some muscle pain, but her spirit, her life, her emotion, everything is just changed completely. So sometimes it happens quickly and sometimes it happens slowly.
It may take time.
Yes. Yeah.
Results may vary from person to person. So
yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You already mentioned about your online program, 10-hour online program, which was my next question. So please tell me more about this. What is this 10-hour online program and how is it designed? For whom is it designed? How does that help a person? Yeah.
Yeah. So The online program I have is basically conversations like this on Zoom,
Okay.
and I made it into 10 hours. It's split into 5 2-hour sessions usually, if people can do it for that long. And I usually recommend to put them pretty close together, because that way you get an impact with it, with the conversation. And in the first session, we usually go into the medical understanding of pain. You know, some of the examples I've been giving, things like looking at phantom limb pain, for example. Because if I could make a statement like all pain is in the brain, but you're like, yeah, but my foot hurts, my back hurts. And so if you think about something like phantom limb pain, where someone is experiencing pain in let's say they've had the arm removed, an amputation, and they're still feeling pain in that arm, then the pain can't be in their hand because it's not there. The pain is happening in the head. So we look at a lot of these kind of things. That another thing I think is very important to know is that all pain is real. Just because we're saying it's created by the brain doesn't mean you're making it up. It's very real. I used to feel like someone had hit me with a baseball bat. It was that painful. So I wasn't imagining that. And I've got a lot of science and a lot of, research things, examples to show for that, because there's no such thing as real pain and an imagined pain. It's all real if you're feeling it.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Even if it's coming from something that's stressful.
And imagine what a person is going through when he or she said that you are just imagining the pain and it is not true, and they feel so low, not supported, not being heard.
Yeah, yeah. It's very important. I'd say all pain is real, right? Whether it's coming from a cut or from stress, it is real. You're really feeling it. And so in the first session, we talk a lot about that, like the science of understanding how pain works in the body and in the brain. And then the other 4 sessions are really making a deep dive into this understanding of how experience is really created, and what is the nature of thought, how consciousness goes up and down. And like I say, when we're in different levels of consciousness, we're going to experience our physical, issues differently. And how there's an intelligence behind how the body's made, an intelligence behind the universe that is already making my heart beat and my lungs work. So if it can heal my body, my mind also has intelligence to heal.
Yes.
And understanding how, because this is something I had a real insight when I was writing my book. If my body has been created with such intelligence to heal itself, why wouldn't my mind? Right? So seeing that innate intelligence is there healing. When I say healing my mind, I don't think my mind is even broken. I just get caught up in that misunderstanding. And when the thinking settles, then clarity and inspiration can come in. And when you understand that and you see there's nothing to be frightened of, that's when the healing comes with everything. So the rest of those sessions are really taking a deep dive into the understanding how this is all actually created, and how the benefits of that mean that my nervous system calm down and the pain can go away. So please continue. No, so I say so right now that program is like live sessions with me talking to people. I am working on an online program that will be on my website eventually, which will be recordings, which will be like a shorter version of that. Okay. So so that's I'm working on it. Because I'm also doing research.
Part is I'm about to ask some question and you are answering well before that. That's the reason I was smiling. Is tell about your program more. So is it 1-to-1, or is it a group program, or is it like a self-paced, so that people
it's one-on-one, me live with a person on Zoom. Okay. So once someone signs up, then we will work out how to schedule those for both of us. Sometimes I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning talking to people in Australia or California, and other times it's different, like late at night talking to people in New York. So we work out times where it's convenient for both of us. Like I said, I usually try and get people to schedule them pretty close together, because if you spread it out too much, then you lose that impact. It's more transformational. So I usually suggest maybe 3 sessions one week, 2 sessions the next week, to kind of get the maximum impact. And during that time, people have access to me on WhatsApp so that we can keep the dialogue going in between the sessions.
Yes.
And so if people have questions, or they want to share their insights, or they get, you know, nervous about, or have a pain flare up even, so they can have access to me on WhatsApp in between the sessions, and I'll send them videos or you know, other resources, so that you're not alone. And you know, and so I think it gives like a very all-round experience that you're making progress to healing.
Awesome, awesome. And like, see, you have written a book, then developed this online program where people can directly work with you. So overall duration is 10 hours, is what you said, right?
Yeah.
And other, it could be an acupuncturist or a healer or a therapist or a coach who like wellness coaches and all that. You also offer mentoring program. That was something unique. So could you please tell about that?
Yeah. So the mentoring program, I mean, I've been mentoring people for years, and it used to be like on the phone, you know, like before we had all this digital, you know, technology. And now I mentor quite a lot of people on WhatsApp. So I have like a monthly fee, and, you know, people can sign up for this, and they can message me, you know, as long as I'm awake, you know, and I do it for 6 days a week. So I take one day off, and I recommend this to everybody. 1 day a week, just switch everything off. I switch off my computer, I switch off my phone. So for me, that's Saturday, like Friday night to Saturday night, and I don't answer any messages then. But the rest of the time, you know, in fact, I'm working with a lady right now in London who was trained as a CBT therapist, and she's working in the health system in England. And she really wants to set up in private practice. So we actually took the 10-hour program that I would, you know, and the 10 hours is just kind of like a random number I came up with, because it seems quite, you know, a substantial amount of time that people can get a good grasp of this understanding. And so we're using those sessions to help her get deeper understanding. And then as she then goes off into her private practice, she'll have the mentoring. She'll be able to call on me, and, you know, in WhatsApp, and ask questions. You know, I had this client and I didn't know what to do, or what do you suggest this? How, you know, what video would you recommend for that? So it's like having your own personal cheerleader, you know. So yeah, so I can go like, yeah, that's great. Oh, I'm so glad that happened. And why don't you try this? And so it can be a support for therapists and coaches who are either transitioning into a new way of working with people. But I also can do the mentoring for anybody. It doesn't have to be, you know, a professional thing, you know, a work situation. I've got clients in, you know, all around the world who I mentor, who are just recovering from their pain, you know, issues. And they, you know, they've either done the 10 hours, or it's, you know, instead of the 10 hours, and we're just, you know, talking, messaging. And it's I think for people who are struggling or suffering, it's nice to know you have someone you can call on at any moment, you know, and have a support there that's ready and available to listen.
So the first prerequisite is they have to go through the 10-hour program, and then comes the later part of mentoring. Is that what you're telling? No?
That is definitely, I think that's the best way.
Okay.
Because some people do just sign up for the mentoring, and if they don't have a good grounding in what I'm talking about, then it's a little bit tricky to, and also sometimes if someone has a very deep or difficult issue to talk about, like say maybe childhood trauma or something, you can't really deal with that in a text, you know, on WhatsApp. WhatsApp isn't really appropriate for, like, you know, for that kind of therapeutic work. So sometimes I can also offer just one-off sessions. It doesn't have to be the 10 hours or nothing. So we can do individual so you could have, like, I have a client who, she meets with me on Zoom for an hour once a month, and then texts with me in between. So there's different combinations. There could be the 10-hour,
depending on the requirement.
Yeah, exactly. And the requirements and the background of the person, and where they're at in their career or in their journey, their healing journey. There's different combinations of coaching and texting and support. Yeah.
Awesome. So, thank you very much, Hannah, for your time. See, what made me happy is here is the person who has healed herself and wanted to create similar results and came up with, and thank you for telling that, there are again series of books coming. And again, you're mentoring, you are helping people one to one, so you're doing a lot. Really, it's a inspiring thing, because I have seen having a big or success stories with teen or relationship. These two are very challenging, and you are able to produce good results in these two areas. So that's a very commendable thing that you are doing.
Thank
So
you.
I
Thank you.
thank you very much. And also, what I liked about your programs is there is a, because some people just offer one to one, but there is no mentoring for other people who want to do the similar work. So you
Right.
are fulfilling that category as well. That
Mhm.
made me really happy, and thank you for that as well. It was wonderful talking to you. And
Thank you.
friends, about book, online program and other things, I'm making available all the links and required details with the website all. So whoever wants to get personally mentored or go through the online program can reach out to Hannah directly. So thank you once again.
Thank you.